Hey everybody, Merry Christmas to you. It's an awesome, awesome day. It's going to be pretty quick here. I'm going to be doing Carnage. I thought it would be a nice side note to wrap up the holiday on, and that I would throw it down fairly quickly and shock some people and say, no warning, just popping on, doing the thing, and we'll see where it goes from there. Sharing this over with the page real quick right before I get started. So I am live, and I am going to be doing this really cool colored shot pretty quick. Now, hey Manuel, thanks for making it. I appreciate it, man. Merry Christmas. Gonna be doing a little bit of underlaying on this one because I like the Carnage uh, look of. I know this is pink and it's gonna be freaking a lot of people out, but trust me, I know it's really cool to do the shredded effect. The tissue fibrous look for Carnage because a lot of people like to do them just solid, but I don't. I like it to have that fibrous symbiotic look. So that's what we're going with the real highlight of Pink 4 as the base because I know a lot of people are going to be freaking out. You're colored in pink and it's Christmas too. But bear with me. It's going to be awesome. Going to be pretty amazing, actually. If you pardon the pun from the Amazing Spider-Man title. Didn't intend to say that, but it worked. But yeah, it's going to be pretty cool. I'm always jazzed about these things because of the fact that I really dig Spider-Man villains because that rogue gallery is really contemporary. Where unlike the Batman rogue gallery is really nostalgic to the way Batman was created, with the old mobster gang style timeline, and it hasn't really come up where it's more conventional yet. And I think the Justice League movie is going to help with that, and the new Batman movie coming out sometime, hopefully in the next 10 years or so, as they figure it all out. We might get an independent film for Batman and have it take off, but we'll see. I thought the Nolan run, the Batman Begins stuff, was really good as far as being contemporary and bringing Batman up to speed. But without Ledger and without them going beyond that, I don't think it's going to jump. I mean, they're going to have to do something different because either they're going to have to go with the Dark Knight version that Affleck has started for the films, or they're going to have to go completely a different direction with like Batman Beyond or something like that to give it that edge. Because starting it over modern day just doesn't work. It doesn't have that feel. And him being an older guy definitely works. And the old dog around the block kind of thing, that rendition's been working very well, in my opinion. But not everybody's a fan. I like Batfleck. I have no problem with it. I thought he was doing a really cool incarnation of it. And being a Miller fan, going with the Dark Knight stuff, and, I don't want to necessarily say the nostalgic stuff, but that's classic Batman to me. I mean, it fits to start him off middle age and not do a retro intro again, which is something I found very cool in the Marvel films where they did Spider-Man Homecoming. They didn't do the whole origin thing all over again and retell that, and I was very impressed with the way they handled that. So that brings us full circle back to Spider-Man. But anyway, I found that very fascinating and creative, the way that they decided just to pick up on the stories. Because, I mean, everybody knows who these guys are, and we don't need an origin film to set the standard. The Marvel Universe is very, very well established, and if you want to bring in a character and do an origin film on a lesser-known character like they're doing with Black Panther, that's very reasonable and understandable. But Spider-Man's been around so long, everybody knows who he is, and there's no need to do an origin story. Pretty much just like Batman, you know, it's been around even longer by about 30, 35 years, and, you know, it just doesn't need to be beat down that much with the origin story. But we'll see. And they gave it an honorable mention in Batman vs. Superman, which I thought was really cool. A great way to do it, rather than just tearing it up and doing the Batman origin thing, you know. And with the modern Man of Steel stuff running amok like that, I really enjoyed that as well. Got a little bit of a run over right there. I'm gonna get that out because I don't like the way that looks. I want to stay within the lines on this one because he's going to be very organic and I don't want it to run amok. So get back to this now. But anyway, this will start to look like Carnage here in just a few minutes as I start to lay this base. I like to put the bright colors first because of the fact that the pencils work in reverse of colors. You know, a lot of people like to put down their base color and then they put in their highlights with the markers over the open edges and they just leave them open. And I don't want to do that. What I'd like to do is lay my base coat and then I coat over and add the darker shades and go from there. But and I'm trying not to mess up my blacks too much by staying in the open areas and coloring them in instead of just going straight across every little patch of black and coating it with pink. That would be weird, not to mention it would dull the inks, and I definitely don't want to do that. So, because it's not something you can really erase when you're working with pencils. But anyway, I love using these pencils. I use them for comic books, and a lot of the stuff that I've got coming out, I'm using them for that. And like I said in previous videos, I like to use different mediums. And in this particular case, I'm using Staedtler, the Staedtler brand. I keep calling them Straddlers, but they're Staedtlers. There's no R right at the front of it, so forgive me for that if you're looking for the brand. But it's STA, not STRA. I really like using these pencils because of the fact that I personally like the nostalgic look of comics when they're penciled, and when you use baseline markers, monotones and things like that, and it just takes some of that computer edge off of them, you know, where you're not necessarily just looking at all the pretty colors and whatnot. You get some of the more finer details of the artwork, and it makes it responsible. You know, it makes the artist responsible for popping that out. It makes all the color generate to enhance instead of overtake. So I always enjoy that aspect of it. And with all the CGI stuff we do these days, even in comics, it's getting a little overwhelmed to where digital painting and all that mess is that way. You know, I mean, I understand save some trees and whatnot, but I'm trying to get away from technology doing all the work for that stuff. I mean, yes, I draw with a tablet. Yes, I can digitally color, and I do a lot of digital color, don't get me wrong. But once in a while, a certain selected title, that selected piece needs to have this kind of edge to it. It just needs it. It brings it to life in a totally different way than it would from just digitally painting it. And then some people got into the point where they use nothing but digital. And I'm sorry, but a lot of that looks vector to me. And if you don't know what vector means, it's flat line art. And that's what you used to get with the old clip art graphics. you know, like in print shop and all that mess back in the day, you know, when everybody used to use advertising clip art, and they would get the cookie cutter stuff, and it had this horrible look to it. So, you know, that's just one of those things. But anyway, it's just a strange one to think about whenever all that stuff's going on, and it's hard to tell, you know, some of this stuff from computer generated art, whether you did it or, you know, as an artist, or whether it was generated by the computer in some form program. And that bothers me a lot. That's what I'm getting at, you know. So anyway, now we have the base coat for Carnage just about finished up. And like I said, I know I've been saying that I was going to do this one in a classic form, and I really am. I like to do the fibrous texturing of the muscles and things like that, and that's exactly what I'm going for here. So we can figure all that out as we go along. See, there we go. Now I'm going to do something really odd. I'm going to build up this orange coat here because this adds the shiny highlights that we're going to need to go over the pink. And it's like, why go over the pink if you're not going to leave, you know, leave it open and whatnot and let the pink shine through? Well, it will in just a few minutes. You'll see. It really will. It will pop. Because the orange, once the reds are down, the orange and the pink will just pop off. It will be a totally different level. Because I'm mixing these colors as I go in, so it's going to have that classic Bagley style Carnage look, where, you know, the colorist, I'm not sure of which colorist did that most often, but when Mark was on the comic, on the Amazing Spider-Man title, and they still hand colored all of that, they used to pop out all of these pinks and oranges and these great colors for Carnage, instead of just making him red, which I always try not to do that. I always try to avoid doing just solid, you know, colors, unless it's an animated thing like a cartoon or something, like, you know, like I did with the Tick, where it's just primary colors and that's all there is to it. If it's supposed to look wet and organic, I like it to pop out in gradations of color. And that's one of the big things that I always take the time to do, because of the fact that when it doesn't, it shows badly. Badly, badly, badly. It washes out, you know, or looks flat. And unless you're doing something like retro, where it's supposed to look flat from being just one tone, don't do that. That's a waste of time, you know, for you to do beautiful artwork and then just leave it flat and kill it with bad coloring. And don't do that, you know, because I've done projects where I did retro stuff like that and nobody got it. And, you know, critics would not read, or reviewers would not read the description and see that it was supposed to be a 60s style Western, and it was done in that late 60s, early 70s style, where they laid down one color and that was it, because the markers were better, they covered more, but they still had a monocolor to them, you know, a monotone to them, or just a flat single tone. That's the best way to put it. But this stuff is blending together and building up, and like I said, what I'm building right here is a foundation for something way better here in just a few minutes when we get this going, because you can see it already starting to take form with it. As it goes over, it takes more of a reddish form because of the pink underneath, so it's giving a really cool bright red look, and I hope you guys can see that, because that's exactly the look that I'm going for, is that bright red highlight But you have to do pink and orange like this to get that in pencils, because if you use a bright red, it'll look watered down and won't look nearly as bright as the orange does, and it won't have the red contrast you need for the brightness in the pink that you know, that it builds up on this foundation. And everybody wants to talk about, you know, well, I know how to color this way and I know how to color that way, and you know, you overcoat and you overlight and whatever. This is just the way I do it, guys. I mean, if you don't like it, I totally respect that, but this is the way that I build it up. You know, because it's like I've been doing this for years now. It's been like 5 or 10 years now that I've been doing this specific way, and the reason that I do that is because of the fact that, like I said, I like to build up the character and the texture in the piece that it normally wouldn't get in a hand-drawn factor. You know, I love the idea of going in and saying, okay, this is my piece, and I colored it, and it's hand-colored, you know, and it looked right. And a lot of people just you know, if they do hand colors, they'll go in and say, no, I don't want to do that. And they'll say, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 colors, and I'm out. But, you know, I've got, just for this character, I've got laying over here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And that doesn't count the black that's, you know, that inked it. So, but I did that because of the fact that I want to build this up properly. And people just don't put in the time, and you know, to make it look good anymore. And that's one of the things. Everybody's after getting the final result of knocking it out as quick as possible, but I'd rather put in the work and get it done the way it needs to be to look the best, because I don't want to put my name on it if I don't think it looks good. You know, it's not about a paycheck for me. It's not about a paycheck. It's about the art. I get a paycheck as a result of the finished product being good enough to earn that. I mean, don't get me wrong, I make money just as much as everybody else, but it's all about the bottom line of the client being happy with the piece that they're getting, and they look at it in awe. Because if you can find this 10 different places, you know, there's millions of people out there doing artwork, and if you can't stand out, then why bother? Hey, Jim, Bart, Adrian, where you been hiding, man? I haven't seen you in ages. Now I'm going to be switching over to a Pentel here, because this particular tone doesn't come in any way, shape, or form with the Staedtlers, and this one is the first red that I'm going to start laying down. And instead of coming out necessarily to eat up every edge, I'm going to shade it through the middle. Okay, because he's supposed to be wet and organic, and I don't want to get gross about it or anything. It's just I want him to look like the edges are shiny, like he's wet. So that's what I'm going to start doing here. And I'm not ignoring you guys in the comments. I'm just trying to focus on the piece. But yep, thank you very much for coming on. Oh man, sinuses hit me all of a sudden there. And I don't want to go too deep into this. I just want to get it nice and toned up where it starts to look wet and solid and have the illusion of being shiny, but take form as well. And the reason for that is because when I start doing the fibers here in a few minutes, that's where it's really going to pop. And I hope it comes off the way I'm expecting it to, because that would be excellent. Right here at Christmas too. I hope it does. It's a Christmas miracle. He did it right. So yeah, all joking and fun aside there, just want to make sure it shows off the way it's supposed to. All right, cool deal. I've got about just about all that side there. Now I know this one doesn't look like it should belong, but it will momentarily as we continue to build this up. So I get this all the time. I get a bad rap for this all the time because people are like watching through the stages and the phases and stuff, and they start ripping about it. And it's like, you know, that doesn't look right, and that doesn't look right, and that doesn't look right. And it will. Trust me, it will. It will, it will, it will. I don't think I've let you guys down yet. So, you know, bear with me a little bit. But the more I do this, I find the more I have really harsh critics out there. But that's okay. You know, people have to judge based on what they see and what they perceive. So I'm fine with that. But, you know, I hear from artists all the time. It's just like, man, you know, your work doesn't look as good as da 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 da. And I'm like, well, I'm not that guy. You know what I mean? My stuff's not going to look like his. Well, why don't you draw like so and so? Well, I'm not that person, and that's okay. But, you know, trust me, trust me, trust me. It's going to work out. If you're taking the time to watch it, I'm not going to let you down. Just bear with me. It's going to be cool. But anyway, I hope everybody's having a great Christmas this year too, because, you know, the weather's kind of weird this year. It's an off year, and, you know, Puerto Rico flooding out still and whatnot, and, you know, still suffering the damages down there. That's a freaking horrible time of year to have that happen. And, you know, it happened back in September, and they're still not cleaning all that stuff out yet. You know, it still hasn't run off yet. That's crazy. I was watching on the news this morning. They were recapping some of it and how some of the aid they need hasn't come through yet and whatnot, and they're debating in the next session what they're going to be able to do. It's just horrible, horrible stuff. I've got a little bit of a run over right there. I want to get that out of there. If at least nothing else, just off that spot. There we go. So now I can keep building this up. And see, you can start to see the textures as I go through. It's building up. It's really getting there. I like to build these things out. And it takes a little time. Going right through the middle here, because like I said, I want to make sure those edges stand out and give those natural highlights that I was talking about with that pink and that orange before I go in with the really heavy reds and start shading this in, because that's where it's really going to matter. I'm trying to hit every little spot here and make it jump up. So it looks all right. We've got these last 2 or 3 little tendrils coming off of here. Make sure that they pop out. Okay, cool. Now I've got that going, and here comes the fun part, because here's the first of 3 reds that are going to shape this and make it start to look textured. As you can see, these are going to be just little red strips in here. And they're not going to be even, because these muscle fibers aren't supposed to be human looking. They're not supposed to be symmetrical or anything like that. They're supposed to be more raw and alien. And you won't be able to see them right at first. They will build up. And I know it's going to look a little funky. It's like, what are you doing? There's nothing there. Oh, trust me, they're there. I'm opposing the line art here to make the fibers run across and runs a little bit sporadic in the way that they're going. I went over on that tooth a little bit and I didn't realize it. Kind of zigzagging through the pattern here. Make it kind of pop out and ripple here and there and whatnot. Really like doing that because of the fact that it adds to the texture as well. See, I don't know if you can see that or not, but it's making that face look really rigid now. Just going in and adding all those little. A lot of people will be screaming, "You're doing it in every piece. What are you doing?" But trying to get this to ripple through here. Working mainly on this neck area right at the moment to stay within the zone of where I'm going so I don't miss too much, if at all. And the reason that I'm laying out these kind of lines right now is because this one isn't so much the fibrous marker, it's more of a vein type of thing. And like I said, it's for texturing rather than anything else, because it adds this red flow through it. It's almost a liquid type of mark through the contrasting colors. And I like doing that because of the fact that it makes it look, like I said, more of a flesh type of character. There we go. Getting into that finger there. Down here into the side of the hand and that thumb. Down underneath here. Now going under this chin. And make it a little darker. And I know this seems like a lot of detail work, but the thing is, you know, you can paint this digitally, excuse me, with a brush in Photoshop pretty quick, you know, to texture that and then mimic it throughout and probably even grid it, you know, make it like a ketone grid or, you know, like a grayscale grid kind of thing, which would be no problem. But I prefer to do it like this because, like I said, it just makes it look more organic. And then whenever you smooth this down, all this washes together. Man, it is an insane look. Really, really is. Because it blends all those textures out and you can't really tell. You can tell it because I'm doing it right now. But whenever the piece is finished, if you don't know this is going on, you could look at this and go, wow, look at all the detail in it, and wow, all the popping colors, and not even know why you're seeing it. But you'll definitely know it's there. There's no missing it. And that's part of why I like doing this, because you can't tell exactly what's going on. You just know that it's going on. Okay. And all it is about marking it. It doesn't matter if it's precise or not, as long as it's marked in there to where it gives that element, okay? Now I'm going to go in with this one. And again, we'll start right here on the face. Right back where I started. And it's not about making symmetrical lines. It's not about making precise lines. It's just about making organic motion through the color. That's what I like the most about it. And if you look, there's a little like dragon head right here in his forehead. I don't know why that eye came out like that. It just did. I just noticed that. Got to be careful not to saturate the tendrils, because it doesn't look right when you do that. You don't want them to look solid in one color. And like I said, it's just texturing these things out just enough to give them a line and pop them up. And so many people just won't take the time to do this, and you'll make Carnage and Venom both look completely off the charts if you do this. Image has a character called Faust, that, and another one called Haunt, which is really cool for that, because they're both symbiotic Venom style characters. Of course, I don't think it's alien based. I think it's demonic, especially for Faust. So, pretty cool stuff, man. Just kind of go through and mark everybody up here, every little thing. I say everybody, but I mean every piece. Just make it across to where you see that flow running through when you look at it. Makes it very organic. And as each layer comes through, the darker layer before it makes the lighter layer show up. So that's what we need to do. I'm just going back over here to make sure I hit everything as it goes, because I know I didn't hit that upper tendril just yet. I've completely taken the card around here, and I haven't hit that one side yet. Whoops, just went outside the line again. See, that happens a lot when I draw with these pencils. I tend to go out sometimes. And now I'm going to go back in and texture that back up. I don't want it to be a blind spot, so the pink is still there. I don't know if it shows up or not, but the pink is still there. I just didn't want the reds to wash out. So I put the orange back. Okay, cool. Now I have another one here. I'll start down here because this one's going to be a little bit darker. And it's going to start to put shadows in places. And I want that to really come off, because this is going to be that heavy one where I'm still going in the middle, but what I'm doing is I'm darkening the parts that would be shadowed from the middle aspect of whatever it is. You know, I want to go in there and make it pop. And a lot of that doesn't come out that way. I'm still blending it in so that it stays with the reds that we have. Just want to darken up those shadowed areas so the brighter stuff will start to shine. Like right here in the thumb, on this inside wall, that's going to be dark. And you can start to see it come up just a little bit in gradation. I hope. I hope it shows. This is going to be the first layer of shading here before we get into the browns and purples, which will bring him up and make him shiny and nasty looking. So we got that whole side. I want to start doing here on the jaw. Then I'm going to go right here. Now what I want to do is I want to saturate this one right here where the mouth guard is. I want to saturate that and make it dark and a little bit duller in color so it doesn't pop up as much. And it'll stand out in contrast when he opens his mouth. See, that's, yeah, it's starting to separate. I like it. It's starting to do the divide that I want it to do. So, a little shadow on that thumb. Go down under here. The underside of that hand. Saturate that a little bit so that it takes a little less color. Starts to show where he's bending organically, you know, like his fingers and stuff like that, where joints are starting to fold and the light's hitting it differently. So now I get back onto this chest piece right here. There's his collarbone right there. Getting back up into this neck. I'm blending this in. Like I said, I'm just trying to make things have certain light levels to them. And I'm only darkening out select pieces completely because I want it to stand up. But we want him to pop out really heavy. Let's saturate that one. And I know this is crazy because it looks like I'm going over the same spot every time. And it's just like, why build it up? Just go for 3 colors and, you know, a base, a highlight, and a shadow. But he doesn't look that way, and the weight of the light doesn't hit him that way either. I mean, even in his high points, it still doesn't shine up that way. So there we go. Cool deal. Get the underside of this one. Right there. Oh, push that corner back. I want to tear it. It didn't tear, but it snagged it. That scared me. Yeah, it didn't tear it. Woo. That would have been a bad day. Right here on Christmas, you're tearing it up, man. Now here comes a brown. It's a maroon color. But this one will be the one that you prominently see with the the original fibers that I was talking about before. I want this to kind of snake through here. Draw a couple of hard lines and then snake it out. And the reason you do that is so that it gives it that organic symbiotic flow. Think about it like wet hair, or even better, think about it like wet pasta. I mean, I know that's a gross analogy, but it's true. Think about it like a wet pasta or wet hair, you know, that kind of thing where it clumps up and then everything kind of gets tangled up and you have to brush it out, you know, or you have to drain it and pull it out and pull it apart. You know, you kind of have to stir it around a little bit. Being a foodie, I'm all over that analogy. Love Italian food. Lots of pastas. Always trying that stuff. Got to be careful though. I'm a diabetic. I could kill over doing that because carbs are bad. Carbs bad. Just tell the ambulance driver, what happened? He's diabetic. He ate pasta. Oh, okay, cool. Insulin pump. Juice him up. Luckily, I don't have to do that. Thank goodness. Knock on wood that I won't have to. Mine's diet controlled. I'm fortunate about that, and I plan to keep it that way. But yep, got that going on. But I like to snake this across and just kind of rib these lines throughout the entire process, because as you rib it across with these little fine lines, I mean, I know, you know, that the big thing is you just can't see it right now. But as I build up these little squiggles and scribbles throughout the line work, he's getting more and more of a rich look. Okay, and I hope you guys can see that, because, you know, from here to here, that's a big transition just in the shoulder, you know, and just the head. And as I go down through the jaw here and whatnot, it's going to pop out. It's going to make it look really cool here in a moment as these start to pump through and shine out in the color scheme. Okay, and it doesn't matter if you run them through, it does if you cross it like that, but it doesn't if you go through multiple pieces. It doesn't have to be each segment that way. I am going to get it off that tooth though. I'll go right in here on that edge, make that fill in and pop out. And it's okay with the teeth, because I'm going to do the bottom line anyway with a darker, probably this one, and I'm going to line the teeth just a little bit like he has gums on there. So I'm not worried about that too much. If it does spot a little bit, but I don't want to run way up on the tooth like that. It makes it look weird. It's definitely a mistake. We can't have those. We can make them, but as artists, we must correct them. It's Christmas, for Pete's sake. Draw it right, man. So, all joking aside here, I've about got this to where it's starting to come up and look like Carnage. I'm really digging it. Trying not to overwork this here, putting in all these little squiggles and stuff going on. And see, like I said before, you take a look at it and you see it going through, and you may or may not see that detail going on right now as I'm putting it in, but when it's a finished piece, you will definitely see those little streaks and stuff. And it's that little detail that makes it pop out to where you can really make a piece shine or fall by that effort. You know, that's the kind of attention to detail that will make you an artist that people pay attention to. And I hear that all the time. You know, it's like you overwork it, and it's just like, well, what would you do? Well, I wouldn't do that. Well, what would you do? And then they wonder why I've got so much work in comparison to what they have. And I'm not saying I'm better than they are. I'm just saying I put in more effort. And that's the difference that I tell all my students all the time, you know, in marketing and in comics. It's just one of those things. People just don't want to do the work anymore. But next we move on. This is a chocolate brown. It's a very unique color. I like using this one because this is the first phase of the brown coloring that I like to mix in, and this gives him that underlying really dark, menacing type of look. Okay, I really dig that one. And this is going to add that brown color to him to make him look really menacing, really off kilter. And the way you do this one is you go in and put in just little stripes like this. You don't really put anything in there except these little stripes. And it's all about the texture. And you don't want them uniform. You just want them to be a sporadic overlay. Because if you lay them uniform, they'll look like they're lines, and it'll look like a screen kind of thing, you know. And you don't want that. You don't want that at all. Because if you go in and do that, what's going to end up happening is you'll wash it out, and it'll look like a a toning type of grid, and we don't want that at all. And this color is really rich here, so really heavy stuff. Okay, now I'm going to do these tendrils before I do anything else, because I don't want to forget any of them as I go through, because once I get into the body, it's going to go really quick. Okay, I'm going to go down here, get this one, then I'll get my big fingers out of the way so you guys can see what I'm actually doing. Oh yeah, that was cool. Let me get this one back here. Okay. And like I said, this just offsets those other colors just a little bit. And you can go in 20 different directions and it won't affect it any differently. And then I've got the dark brown, and then I've got the black, which I'm going to shade with. So that one will make it pop out a little more. And then we'll finish this up. That'll be it. And I like going, like I said, I like going 20 different directions with this so that it doesn't look uniform by any means. And be careful not to zigzag back. Feather this out. If you do use this effect, be sure to feather it out. That way you don't zigzag, because if you cut into it with a zigzag, it will pop out like an eyesore, and it'll be bad. Don't do that. And I try to go parallel with major lines. You know, if it's going down this way, like this line here, I try to go across it and, you know, make it an opposite direction kind of deal. Because you'll really mess it up that way if you don't. But here comes the major shading. Now you go back in and you can put in your hard lines like this and your hard shadows and really make these segments pop out and look really gruesome and nasty, which is what I like to do. Most people like to go right up against the blacks with the dark shadows, but I don't. I use the light ridge line. I do it with false lighting, you know, by where the light would hit the most mass on the character. I try to shade it based on that side, because in this character the light's coming down this way, and that's the reason, you know, it's coming down from this direction and then back up top in a cross pattern. That's why it's dark underneath here, like in these sections. And a lot of people just leave it open and leave him uniform, and that really bothers me when people do that, because then it doesn't look like it's moving, you know, like every piece of it can move. And I want it to look, if it's going to be an alien and I'm going to put in that much effort, I want it to really look like he can pop off and, you know, be a real pain in the butt by every bit of him moving and coming at you. And that's a big thing most people don't do, unfortunately, because they just don't want to put in that detail and that effort. But it's Christmas, man. I want to do this one right. See, just like that right there. Just go in and put a little bit of a shadow in there, a little bit of texture, and you're good to go. So many people fail to do that. I'm going to darken in this jaw here. There's a specific name in like reptiles that they call that mesh right there, and I don't know what it's called, but, and I should, because I own a couple of dragons, but not the mythical King Arthur type. We're talking bearded. Which will make you want to slay them if they bite you. It hurts. I've fallen victim to that by surprise a couple of times. my daughter's notorious for laughing at me because we have one named Norman, and he was adopted because he was unsellable at a pet store, and was donated because of the fact that the young man that had purchased him originally tortured him to an extent, and now he does not like male figures around him at all. He does not like men, and I have to work with him constantly, because if not, I'm suddenly on the plate for dinner, because when I go to pick him up, he will bite the fire out of me, and it hurts, but you know, I'm not going to get rid of him just because of the fact that he was abused. And they're non-venomous, so I mean, it's just, you got to be careful with him, you know. And I only catch him in bad moods sometimes. He's not like violent or anything. No one's at risk or anything like that. It's just he's been abused, and if I catch him in a wrong time or wrong mood, he gets a little grabby sometimes. But anyway, that's a side note though. But yeah, I don't know what those things are called. There's an actual scientific name for them. They're known specifically to reptile species. Okay, I'm going to build that out. And I don't want to use that brown for that, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to this dark red like I talked about earlier. Make these teeth look a little more organic by adding a gum line to them. Everybody likes to put bright pink on Venom. I prefer to put in a pink in his mouth for Carnage, and then have everything kind of blend out. And then like these dark pockets where his tongue should be up here on the highlight and the underside, I like to put in this kind of shading thing where it looks like it's throat ports for the esophagus in his mouth, because this way it looks like it's a reptile type of thing, and he looks like he's going to bite you. And then there's the port that opens. They have that fleshy part right there that expands out, and that's for like engulfing food. A lot of snakes have that, but and I go in with a little brown to soften it up. Take some of the red out of it so it doesn't look as weird, quite as bright, like that. Now I'm going to go back to it again on these top teeth. And I don't want anybody to misassociate that with being blood or anything cheesy like that. I don't like to do bloody fangs on characters. It's just weird. But with this particular character, these really work well. It makes his teeth look a little more organic and faceted into his mouth. And now I'm going to go over this with a little bit of black in the heavy shadow parts like this, where his mouth is and things like that, where there's a clear ridge, to kind of make that pop out a little bit. I'm just doing a circling motion. Don't drag back and forth because it'll get too dark. It'll build up. Do a circling motion so you can see and make that work for you. And like right here on his neck, I'm going to go in and kind of shade those pieces in just a little bit to make it organically pop where his neck is. Make it look like he's got some weight to his chin and a distance. A little bit of that over there. Shadow in on this side a little bit. And then where a couple of these bigger pieces are, these bigger segments are, and the light hits it a little different going on the bottom side, and it'll really wake them up just a little. Just where some of these heavier tones are. Kind of putting that circling motion in there, because like I said, I don't want to black them out because then it'll ruin it, you know, because you don't want a heavy black where you got all those black inks. You want it to look like it's shadow on the red flesh. Kind of makes them pop up just a little bit, like that. Get that thumbnail there. Kind of make that pop down a little bit. Get the underside of that hand. Leave that open because that's a bit of the arm right there. So now I'm going to finish this up. I like it where it crosses right there. Get the underside of that coil. Just adding a little detail to these teeth to make them pop out just a little bit more. Okay. Right back there. It's a heavy shadow side right there. Heavy shadow back up in there. Make that reach a little bit. Cool deal. All right. Now, now comes the tricky part. Right in here where these eyes are very organic with these blotches, you go around them just a touch and it makes them raise because they're constantly in motion. They're almost like Rorschach type of blots. They move, and as the character moves, all of this stuff moves and morphs. So does this. So to make it look like it's alive and like it's moving in motion or capable of moving, you just add in just a little bit around the edge of that gray look right around the blotches that are on the outside edge, and it'll make them individually look like they're on their own, like they're floating on the surface like they're supposed to. And it will definitely change things. So now, because of all this stuff right here, and I just smudged that anyway, what I was going to do is I'm going to go in here, because I laid my hand on the card. I'll have to check that out. But anyway, I should have used a blotting pad, but it's fine. I'm going to black this out anyway, so it won't matter. But yeah, that's the way I want to go with it right there. Be careful not to touch this too much anymore. I got my hand over it, but I actually laid the back of my hand on it by mistake. And it moved everything over there. Now, most people would say go in and black this out with ink, but I'm not gonna, because I want it to look heavy, because I want the heavy blacks in him to pop out, and I don't want to make it look flat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to outline it with the pencil, and this is a black, so it'll work fine, and it'll tone it out where that won't look like it's it washes out for the inks. Because I've seen that way too many times where people come in with black inks around them, and I've even done it with a couple of these cards, and I've noticed it later that when the color pops up, it looks kind of balanced or washed out, you know, muted, because of the fact that the inks are so heavy on him that when you blacken it out with the ink, it just washes the whole thing out and balances it and kills the aesthetic, you know. So don't do that. Bring it up with the pencil in the background, and it'll make him pop out, because those inks are so hard, it'll make him stand out and be more vibrant. So there's a little tidbit for you. I really like the way this is coming out. Okay, going out around this. Try not to snap my lid off, because that would be horrible. Okay. All right. Coming in really close to that. Now, down in here, like that. I'm not even going to bother going up in there. That little, I'm not going to go in that little crevice right there. I'm just like that. Just kind of making little spirals here and coloring this in as best we can. So let's see what we can do here. Try not to hang the card anywhere, because I never know what these cards are going to do. You know, these blanks, I never know which direction they're going to go, or if they're going to snag or whatever. Fill that in nice and neat here. And we've almost got him done here, folks. This is one of my favorite cards out of the series. I just wanted you guys to be able to see what happens when these things are colored out properly. And with that said, I don't think I'm going to touch any more of this thing. I think I'm going to leave it alone at that and say that Merry Christmas. Hope you guys are having a great one. Thank you very much for hanging out with me for as long as you did. And I am out of here. I will see you guys tomorrow with another one, and we're going to keep on trucking. So take care.